Guys, how's it going? Jimmy here with a Final Cut Pro tutorial. So you've watched your video 10 times over, made tweaks here and there, and you're finally ready to export your project and share it with the rest of the world. Now I'm going to show you how to do that in just 3 easy steps. Tip number 1 is make sure your rendering is complete. If you go up to the tick just in the top left corner here, give it a click. And then if you see the word idle, that is normally a good thing. That means that everything is rendered out. You will also know if there is something still rendering. So for example, if I put in an effect onto a clip, you will then see these dots come up at the top. When this renders, all of those dots will disappear. So that's another thing to look out for. Just make sure, zoom all the way out and just make sure there's no dots, which means your footage is still rendering. So I'm looking good here. Another way to triple check that there is nothing else rendering, if you go up to the top here, click Final Cut Pro, Preferences, and you want to make sure that background render is ticked. If it's unticked, that means that things may not have rendered. So make sure it's ticked. That way everything can render out and then you are ready to move on to the next step. A couple of ways we can export our projects. We can go up to File, we can go down to Share, and you want to click the master file. There is another way you can do this. If you head on over to the top right corner, you see this square with an arrow pointing out. If you click that, you'll get the same options. And again, you want to click master file. So we're into step number 2 now. This can look a little bit confusing, but don't worry, I'm going to take you through each point for you. The first thing that I check at the bottom of this window are these numbers. You'll probably recognize these numbers from when you started the project. I'll put a link in the description on how to start a project if you do need reminding and how we came across these numbers, but I'll walk you through them. 1920 by 1080 is what you want. If it's going on YouTube, if you're sending it to a friend, then that's perfect. That's your standard on most platforms. 23.98 frames per second. Now this depends on what you filmed your footage in. I film my footage in 23.98 frames per second. If you film yours in 24, 25, 30, you'll probably see that number there. So I do it in 23.98, so don't worry if you see a different number. The audio, we want it to be in stereo, and 48 kilohertz is a good number. And then the last one here is going to be the duration of your video. Now, if you think it is only a 3-minute video, and for some reason it's turning out to be 10 minutes, then clearly you've got something maybe sitting at the end of your video. It could be a slug, it could be random B-roll that you were supposed to use. Get rid of it, because we don't want that in the project. Moving on to the right side where it says .mov, that's going to be your file name. We can change this, and I'm going to explain it later on in the video. But at the moment, this is what our file is going to be. Moving onto the computer with the tick in it, if I hover over it, it's going to show me what this video can be played on. So if I'm going to send this to a friend, I need to make sure that my friend only has a Mac, because it cannot be played on anywhere else. If it's going on YouTube, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. But if I'm going to send it to a friend, I need to make sure what my friend is using. And the next numbers over is going to tell you how large your file is. Mine's at 480.9 megabytes estimated. If yours is way higher and you think it shouldn't be higher, but if you filmed in 4K, then it probably will be higher. But again, later on, I'm going to show you how we can change that. With the details, working from top to bottom, give your video a name. I did this in London. I did it in Hampstead Heath, so this is what I'm going to call it. If you put it on YouTube, don't worry, you can change the name. With the description, I'd never keep it. It's pointless. Absolutely pointless to me. Keep your name in there. Of course, you want credit for doing this video. With the tags, this is to help you find the video on your computer with metadata. I don't use it. I never have, so I just get rid of these. Up to you guys if you want to put a bunch of tags in there so that you can find your video on your computer. If you forget where you store it, I guess that's the main reason why we do put tags in our videos and with any other footage that comes in. Moving on to settings. With the format, if it's going straight onto YouTube, then we can just keep it at video and audio. There is no reason to change that. Like I said earlier, when we hover over the computer screen and we want to send it to a friend that has a PC, that's when we do want to change this. So by clicking the drop down box and we go to computer, you will notice that the size has changed and the file name has changed. So this is changed to an MP4. And again, if I go over the computer, I can now send it to someone that has a PC. If you're doing this for a client, put the format onto computer. Especially if you don't know if they have a Mac or a PC, then that is definitely a good option. But for now, I'm going to keep mine on video and audio because that is what I do. Now, just by putting it back onto video audio, the estimated size have gone up to 3 gigabytes, which is huge. That's because of the video codec has changed. We don't want Apple ProRes 422. Your option every single time, H.264. If you are just sending it onto a friend, or if you put it on YouTube, H.264 works best, and it gives you a really small file size, and it still comes out really great. Moving on, include chapter markers. I never tick this because I don't add chapters into my video, but if you do, give it a tick. No reason not to. And with action, I always save only. I don't want QuickTime to open up my player. I'll save it and then I'll go into where it's been saved, and then I will test the video later. Moving on to roles, I would keep this as QuickTime Movie. What this does is that it keeps the video and the audio in one file. Now, if you do want just audio, for example, this could be a podcast, then you would want to go to separate files, and then you can actually choose what files you want in your overall file. You can also go back up to the box and you can do video only a separate file, audio separate file, multi-track. There's so many options, but guys, if it's going on YouTube, if you're sending it to a friend, QuickTime Movie is certainly your best option. Once we're finished with our export settings, give it the once over. There's no harm in doing so. And then we're moving on to step 3, which is where we are going to save it on our computer. Now, of course, I can't tell you where to save it. That is entirely up to you. So we can save it right now. And then that brings us back to the project. Now you notice that box come up saying it was preparing. You notice what I said earlier regarding our rendering process. Now if we click that, we can actually see that rendering is happening, but it's under the sharing option. And this is exporting our video. At this moment in time, grab yourself a cup of tea. It could be a moment or two. And then I'll move on to the bonus step. So once our project has exported, you can see that everything is idle, and there will be a box that pops up in the right hand corner here that says it is ready to view. And moving on to the bonus step, and it's very important we do this before we send it anywhere, is make sure it plays. So find where you saved it, give it a preview, watch it the whole way through, make sure there is no mistakes, and then you are ready to move on. Now listen guys, I'm going to be releasing a video very soon with my favorite built-in effects in Final Cut Pro. So make sure you press that subscribe button so you don't miss out and up your editing game. Otherwise, I will catch you in the next one.